I'm a high-functioning autistic man, and I suffer from Asperger's syndrome. Asperger's. I was about to say. These videos that I'm gonna pop out in the next few months, they're gonna be for you guys. So I'm gonna tell you my struggles and the issues, the problems that I have to deal with in my life every day, so you don't have to deal with them. So you can recognize them early and sniff them out. So today I'm going to talk about fitting in, specifically trying to fit in by doing things that are not necessarily what you would like to do, and you just do them because you just need to fit in somewhere. This doesn't matter where, right? And this includes people pleasing, doing reckless stuff, doing stupid stuff you would never do, making a fool of yourself just, to appear funny or things like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and make my first point. This is the dilemma about high masking autistics, is that we mask very well. We most of us learned, the patterns and the things that normal people do. I'm gonna say normal people a lot. I don't mean normal per se as in right people, but just neurotypical, just a short for neurotypical. So just bear with me. We look like normal people, and we sound like normal people. We may even walk like normal people, but inside we carry a lot of stuff that you're not seeing. The average neurotypical Joe, you don't see, because we are hiding it from you. And that's the thing that we do as a survival mechanism, but ends up kind of eating our lives away. And that's what happened to me. Right now my life is a mess, and I feel completely empty. I don't know who I am anymore. I feel like a hollow husk of a human being, and I have no idea what makes up myself. I only have two states in life. I either feel completely numb and dull, or I feel bad. There's no happiness, or at most, if I'm anticipating something good that's gonna happen, like I'm gonna get a package that I've been waiting for a long time, I'll be I don't know about excited, but like anticipation. I guess it's a positive thing. I don't really feel much other than these three things that I just mentioned. And the problem is, I've masked for so long, that I kind of lost my emotions. I lost myself and who I really am. And that's a problem for a lot of autistic people. When you mask for decades and you're around people all the time and you need to appear a certain way, you start to lose, you're compromising, you're trading parts of yourself for parts that other people you think they want to see in you. In middle school, I've learned that you just cannot be different. I was very obviously autistic when I was a little kid, up until I was in elementary, and first year of middle school, up until I would say half of the second year. I was very, very obviously autistic. People could tell, people ostracized me a little bit, and I felt real different. I already struggled with identity when I was a little kid, and that stems from my upbringing, because I was at home. I don't know about you guys, but at home I always felt like I wasn't enough. Like, my dad used to beat me because he used to make me feel stupid and degrade me and say degrading things to me, which undermined my self-esteem a lot, and that brought me to develop a sense of I'm not enough. My personality is not good enough for people. And so I started out as a kid by kind of copying other characteristics, making up personalities. I would make up complete personalities that were not mine, that completely different, because I knew I was getting into a situation where there was a new social group. So I would be like, okay, this is my chance to create a whole new personality so people would find me cool. and that brought a lot of cringe moments, obviously, because I was a little kid, I didn't know what I was doing, but I did it a lot. I even did it with my family at one point. I didn't feel accepted enough, so I built up this whole personality of, I pretended that I could talk to Jesus and stuff because my mom was very, God damn, dude, stop singing. But yeah, no, my mom was Christian, my stepdad was as well, so I was like, well, there's only one way I can, get them to like me, which is, I guess, being a magical kid who can talk to Jesus and shit. And so I did that, and I did stuff like that throughout my childhood a lot. I would take credit for stuff that I didn't do. I would, say, oh, hey, go to some kid and be like, hey, look at this song that I made, and play a fucking Black Eyed Peas song. It was like the cringiest shit possible. I didn't know what I was doing. I just was trying to experiment with my identity because I just didn't feel like I never felt like I was enough, just, since I was a little kid. And then in middle school, that's when I started realizing that didn't work, that was not the way to do things. And, people could tell that I was different. People made fun of me, and I got a little bit bullied for it. I was trying to be mysterious and shit, and do all this stuff, because I was trying to experiment with my personality and identity, I just was always trying to be someone that was just, anything but me, right? Anything but me. And at one point, I found out the method. I found out a gold mine of social success. Mimicking other people. Mirroring. That's what a lot of autistic people do. Some people, start doing it when they're a little bit more, into, their adult life. But I started doing it around middle school. That's when I started mimicking other people. I remember this one kid that, he was a new kid in my class, and I thought he was so cool. When he talked in a cool way, he had a different accent, and, a different inflection in his speech, and I was fascinated by that. And he had a particular personality. He was very, critical of everything. And in my mind, that made him cool in my eyes. He was cool in my eyes, right? So, for the first time in my life, I started mirroring someone that existed in my life. All my life, before I just made up random personalities that I made up in my bedroom that I thought would be cool. But now I started mirroring someone else, and that worked. To my dismay, I was flabbergasted. I was like, holy shit, someone accepted me. Someone thinks I'm their friend. I already had friends before, but it was always by, doing the same shit that they were doing. In a way, I was mimicking before too, but not to the same extent. But this time, I was mimicking their voice, their inflection, to the point where one day I came home and I was speaking to my mom, and I didn't even know I was doing that kid's voice, and she was like, why are you talking like that? Stop. Why are you? She said, why are you doing that bully voice? That was pretty funny. But yeah, that's when I started mimicking other people and realizing that I was having a lot of success by, just copying what other people would do, say, and think. And that became kind of my crutch my whole life. I started doing it with everyone, and it became very easy for me to make friends this way, but it led me to lose myself little by little, year by year. And it can be exhausting, and a lot of high-masking autistics can know this, it can be really exhausting to keep the mask on going. Sometimes you just wanna be alone. You're tired, you don't wanna keep the mask, you're just tired of pretending, and you just wanna be alone. You want your alone time, I'm tired of masking, fuck this shit, I just wanna be in my room, playing video games. I needed a lot of alone time, and I feel like I started to burn out when I was in high school, especially after I was 18. I think that's when my depression and my lack of self identity, I guess, started kicking in overdrive. And it's exhausting. Mimicking other people and never being yourself. It's something that takes a real big toll on your mental health, and people just don't realize it. People see you smiling and cracking jokes. That became my thing and still is my thing. I always try to be funny because I found out that people like people who make them laugh. So I always try to be funny, always crack jokes in every situation. I always try to be funny, always. It's become my biggest crutch in when it comes to socialization, because I know people will like me if I make them laugh. So fuck it. Every other thing I say will be a joke. And I was always the class clown, in elementary, and that worked fairly well. I was always kind of the class clown or the clown of the group in every social group that I was in. The cost of doing this, though, of fitting in no matter where, brings you to befriend some people sometimes that you don't particularly want to befriend, but you do it just because you think it's the right thing to do. And that's what happened to me, in high school. I was always kind of shit at having female friends. I can't really have female friends, it's not a thing that I can do very well. It's not something, so my school was, my high school was an art high school. It was art focused, so of course, the female population was a little bit, bigger than the male population. And I started realizing it when I already knew it, when I was in my first 2 years. There were only 3 males in the whole class, 26 people, only 3 males. So of course, when you're a guy, it's kind like a guy who's kind of afraid of talking to girls. That's your only choice to make friends, with the only males of the class. It's kind of your only option, right? So I just did that. Otherwise, the option is being alone, and I just could never be alone. I couldn't. I had to belong somewhere. I had to, because middle school taught me that if you don't belong, people are going to, make fun of you. People are going to ostracize you, isolate you. I didn't want that. I was scared of that. So moving on, I always kind of made friends with whoever was there, and it worked in the first 2 years because the guys in my class we're just normal kids, so it worked just fine. But at one point, when my classmates changed, I was still in a situation where it was mostly girls. No, it's not an earthquake. It's just the little table. I moved the table by accident. But I was in a situation where it was only me and I think 3 or 4 other males in my class, and one or two of them I wasn't particularly, interested in being friends with. I just didn't vibe with them because they were kind of like jocks, and I never got along with like frat boys, jocks kind of, people. And then we had the kind of like nerds / outcasts, which were still, the males of the class. So, that's what was left for me, I couldn't make friends with girls. So that's just what was left for me. This guy, we'll call him G from now on. I made friends with him, and we vibed pretty well. He was pretty cool. He was into anime and other stuff that I liked, but he had one key difference from me, is that he did drugs. I did not. Up until that point, I never tried drugs. I was never interested. And he kind of got me into drugs because, my reason for mimicking other people is, I always tried to mimic the people that were considered, particularly, cool in my eyes. And oh my god, we have someone who smokes weed in my class. That's forbidden. That's considered cool. Am I right? You know. And he was the kind of person that, when you had like class parties, people would always say, you know what he did last night? That's crazy. And, when I heard those things, I was like, I thought that was kind of like an admiration in their voice. In retrospect, it was probably just, he's a fucking dumbass. But in my head, in that time, I thought he was special because people would talk about him, and I wanted to be special. I wanted to be, cool, as most kids do, I guess. I just, I was a good kid, I was good at school, but I kind of started my performance started dropping after I knew this kid, and this other kid that was his friend. We became kind of like the trio that smoked weed all the time, and they introduced me to weed, and I couldn't say no, because saying no in my head was like, saying fuck it, I'm not your friend. I don't like you, and I didn't want that. I wanted to mirror other people. You smoke weed, I smoke weed. You say this thing, I say this thing. You have this opinion, I have this opinion. It was non-stop. So, it worked in the meantime because, I thought these were my friends. I really thought so because they looked for me. I felt like, they liked me. But they liked me because I was just like them, and in retrospect, I can see that, but I couldn't see it at the time. And I could never see it until it was too late, I guess. And I lost all of my friends, but that's another topic. When you are, autistic, high-functioning autistic person, sometimes what can happen is you can develop a dependent personality. I surely did develop a dependent personality because not just because of my school, social life, but also because of my home life. My mom, bless her heart, she's a wonderful woman, but I feel like she coddled me and protected me too much because I was autistic, right? And so, I understand I understand her. She wanted to protect me. She wanted me to be sheltered, from the cruelty of the world. She knows she's an adult. She knows that the world is a fucking harsh place, So, as a kid, I never really had any chance to stand my ground or, kind of develop my own assertiveness or, I just always needed validation because my mom, kind of always protected me and always made me feel special. She was always complimenting me and saying to other people, oh, he's so special, he's so good at drawing and doing all these other things. He's such a special kid. And she would bring me to conventions about indigo children and shit, and she brought me up with this feeling that I had a big purpose, that I was this special kid, right? And she always coddled me and protected me from the world, and I never had to stand up for myself. When I got bullied, I just resorted to calling my mom, and she would go off on them. I was never standing my own ground and assertive. And I also, because of this, developed a big problem with saying no to people and rejecting things. I'm a very submissive, and I'm a very submissive kind of guy because of my upbringing. And so, every time, if someone offers you to smoke weed, you can't fucking say no, right? Oh, can you? If someone you don't like asks you for $10, you don't tell them no, because you just cannot do that. It's ingrained in your brain that you need to be this subservient person who has to do other people's bidding all the time to be accepted, because that's the thing. You need validation. You want when you have a dependent personality, you have this burning need for affection, for acceptance, for belonging, and for love. And when people don't give you that, it's a crisis, right? Being so dependent, led me to being very passive in my life. I kind of lost track of what my purpose is, because I let all the grown-ups do the big decisions for me. My high school was, suggested by my teacher and my mom, and I was like, okay, sounds good to me. Nothing, all the big decisions up until I was like 23 or 24, they were never up to me. I never had to make big life-changing decisions on my own, and that fucks you up. That makes you a very passive, frail, when you're so used to making yourself small, and also, that's another topic, being non-confrontational. My household, I couldn't talk back. My dad was kind of violent, he would, not always, but, sometimes he would beat me up, especially me, because I wasn't his son. I wasn't his biological son. My stepbrother was. So he almost never got the beatings, very rarely, but I got them all the fucking time. Man, he was going hard on me. Every time I did even the smallest, stupidest thing, he would beat my ass up. And, that created a fear of confrontation in me. I could never speak up, and, talk back to him or anything. And that, also created this, people pleasing and all this, it's just, I became a shadow of a person. I'm not myself. I'm just, basically just, so yeah, I just became a shadow of myself. And, I feel like I have no soul. I feel like there's, I've built such a wonderful exterior, such a wonderful surface to appeal to people, to get people to like me, and the contents are not, there's nothing there. I don't know what makes me myself, because I spent all my life imitating other people, mimicking them, their tastes, their opinions. And if I have a contrary opinion, like if I have an opposite opinion of what, if someone says I'm against abortion or something, it's a stupid, I'm not saying that I'm like pro or against abortion. It's just a stupid, it's just an example. They tell me they're pro-life, and if I was pro-choice, I couldn't tell them, because that in my head, that would mean I'm going against this person, and this person could, erase me, get rid of me. And I just can't have that. I need that validation. I need the belonging. I need the attention. And, when you are like that, a lot of times in my life, that need for validation, that dependent need for other people to make me feel like I'm worth something, would bring me to, I always thought that I was not enough, so I would steal other people's work and claim it as my own all the time, like drawings or songs. I can draw, I can make music of my own, but I don't feel like I'm good enough. I'm a creative person, and I am pretty good, decent. Oh my god, there was a bird that just dropped by right next to me. But I'm kind of decent at what I do, but I never felt like I was good enough to be praised. So whenever I felt like I needed some quick validation, I would just get someone else's work and be like, hey, I did this shit, give me some praise now. Very nice work, thinking fungus. Thank you. And of course, this leads to imposter syndrome, because when you know that nothing that people are congratulating you for is yours, that brings you to feel like a fraud. I always felt like a fraud, and I was a fraud. and that brought me to feel like that even when the work was mine and I did it. I never had any peace. That's just the dangers of being non-confrontational and being always so submissive and mimicking other people. So don't do what I did. Don't be like me. Build your own identity. Find out what makes you you, and don't be like me, who will wake up when you're 25 and realize that all your entire life was a lie, and that you're nobody. There's nothing there. Your soul is completely empty, and there's almost nothing that makes you what you are, who you are. You need to build your own identity. If you're a young teen or in your early 20s, please take this advice. Don't be like me. Don't people please all the time. Stand up your ground. Voice your opinion. Don't be afraid. People don't actually care. That's what I've learned. People don't actually care. People are okay with you having a different opinion, as long as you're not obnoxious about it. Don't let this become your life, because I hate this life. I was cornered by my own need for appreciation and belonging, and trying to make everyone happy. That ruined my life. That cornered me into a life that I despise. I am 25 and I have no friends anymore because I was always trying to make someone else happy. I was never myself, and it's hard to realize that coming to the realization that nobody ever really loved you, and nobody will ever love you, because there's no you. That's a hard pill to swallow, right? There's no me deep inside this exterior. People see me and they don't see the problems that I have. They don't think I'm autistic. They believe I'm just normal, because I've developed a really good sense of what's normal, to say and do and behave like. And so I appear like a normal person, but at what cost? Now I'm nobody, and I don't feel alive, and I feel like an imposter. I feel like a ghost, and this extends to romantic relationships. Sorry, let me check the battery real quick. I feel like a ghost, and this extends to romantic relationships as well, because my last relationship, which will be a topic for another video, romance and all that stuff, but I'm gonna touch on it really quick before I end this video. Man, I loved this woman, and I felt love for the first time with this woman that was my last relationship, my ex. And one day, after we broke up, she said something along the lines of, "Did you really love me, or did you love the idea of me?" And that stings. That hurt me, because I know I loved her, but did it look like it to her? Because she never made me mad, so I never really, it was rare that I would stand my ground and go against her, because I'm someone who's so used to make myself small. And the thing is, I was always myself with her, and she just never made me mad, because she was the right person for me. And I suck at setting up boundaries. I really suck at it, because I'm not confrontational and non-assertive, so I suck at it. I don't put up my boundaries, and that makes it seem like I'm just going with the flow with whatever she wants, but I'm not. I loved her like she was. I just I didn't really have many boundaries, and didn't know if I had any boundaries, and even if I had any, I wouldn't have known how to set them up, because just how my life was, I guess. But I really loved this person. But when people see that part of you that always agrees and never has an opinion of their own, they just think that you're a yes man. They just think that you're, that you don't like them for them, and you're just there just to, be a copy of whatever they are. But I wasn't like that, for a lot of people. I considered a lot of people my actual friends, and I confided with them, they confided in me, but I just did it with the wrong I just did it, with the wrong methods, I guess. And that brought me to where I am today. So, yeah, don't be like me. Be yourself, and don't wake up an empty, hollow loser of a human being. Always look inside yourself and see, what can I do today to conquer this day and to make everyone, see who I really am. Thank you guys. See you next video.